Hi, welcome. My name is Ray, and I'm going to help you build CLARA in Honkai Star Rail. To be honest, I couldn't think of a better intro, so let's just get into it. For her talent, basically what this does is reduce the damage taken by CLARA, and along with that, Svarog will mark the enemies who attack CLARA with Mark of Counter and will respond with a counterattack. It's important to note that the counterattack is considered as a follow-up attack. For her skill, it deals AoE physical damage to enemies based on CLARA's attack. Also, enemies who are marked with Mark of Counter will take extra physical damage. You'll know if an enemy is marked when they have a little target symbol above their head, which looks like this. For her ult, the damage taken by CLARA will further be reduced, and she's gonna have a higher chance of getting attacked for 2 turns. Additionally, Svarog's counter attack will be enhanced. It will now deal more damage. It will also deal damage to enemies adjacent to the target, and Svarog will be able to counter even if the enemies didn't attack CLARA. Or in other words, he's going to do off-field damage. This will only last for 2 times though, so keep that in mind. For her technique, this will attack an enemy, and upon entering the battle, CLARA will have a greater chance of getting attacked for 2 turns. Moving on to her additional traces, we have Kinship, wherein if CLARA is attacked by an enemy, she has a 35% chance to remove a debuff placed on her. This is great for scenarios wherein if CLARA is, let's say, frozen, if she gets hit, she has a chance to be unfrozen. Next, we have Under Protection, which increases the chance of resisting crowd control debuffs. If you don't know what crowd control debuffs are, basically these are debuffs that prevent a character from taking extra actions. This includes Frozen, Entanglement, Imprisonment, Dominated, and Outrage. And lastly, we have Revenge, which increases the counterattack damage. Now for the prioritization, I'd say you should prioritize her talent first because that's the counterattack, followed by her ult, then her skill, and finally her basic attack. As for the other little traces, you can unlock them anytime you want or if you have any spare materials left. For her Eidolons E1, when you use your skill, it won't remove the marks of counter on the enemies. Now, I don't have E1 CLARA, so I'm not sure how this works, but if I had to guess, this means that the mark of counter will stay permanently on the enemies until they die. So if that's the case, then that's good because you can deal more damage with your skill. E2 increases CLARA's attack for 2 turns after using her ult. E3 expands her skill by 2 levels and her basic attack by 1 level. E4 reduces the damage taken if CLARA is hit. This will last until the next turn of CLARA. E5 expands her ultimate and talent by 2 levels. And finally, E6, Svarog now has a 50% chance to do a counterattack if allies other than CLARA are hit without even using your ult. And when you use your ult, the number of enhanced counterattack will be increased by 1. So you're gonna have a total of 3 enhanced counterattacks. Now, are these Eidolons worth it? Absolutely, especially her E6, but even her E2 is already great. In other words, you can have her at any Eidolons and she will still become better. I'm only going to mention the light cones that are viable for her. So in the 3-star unit, all of them are viable options for the early game, so you don't have to worry about that. In the 4-star unit, Under the Blue Sky is great. It can increase your attack, and when you defeat an enemy, it increases your crit rate as well, which is also nice, especially if you have the Inner Salsoto set for the planar ornaments. Another good option is the Woof Walk Time. This is a free-to-play light cone that you can get in the light cone manifest. It increases your attack and increases your damage to enemies that are afflicted with bleed or burn. And finally, her best in slot 4-star light cone will be the Nowhere to Run, which unfortunately you can only get from the battle pass. This will increase your attack and also restore HP based on your attack. That is very good for CLARA since she will get hit most of the time. Although if you can't afford the battle pass, you can just stick with the other 4-star options. In the 5-star unit, her best in slot is the Something Irreplaceable, which is her signature light cone. It increases your attack, restores HP, and increases your damage furthermore. Another viable option is the free-to-play 5-star light cone on the fall of an Eon, which you can get from the Herda shop. This will increase your attack up to 32% at S1, and if you perform Weakness Break, which I think CLARA won't struggle to do so, your damage is further increased for 2 turns. I recommend that you superimpose this up to S5 because I think that will really make your CLARA stronger, or at least at S3 if you're not that dedicated to her. You can buy the chips from the Herda shop that you can use to superimpose this light cone. For the Relics 4-piece set of Champion is the best. It gives physical damage boost and increases your attack for up to 25% for the rest of the battle. So it's really great, but if you can't complete a 4-piece set yet, you can go with a 2-piece set of Champion and 2-piece set of Musketeer. As for the planar ornaments, both Space Sealing Station and Inert Cell Soto are equally great with their own purposes. Space Sealing Station increases your attack, and Inert Cell Soto increases your crit rate, and if you reach 50% crit rate, you get ultimate damage and follow-up attack damage increase. Although you're not going to get benefit from the ultimate damage increase because CLARA's ultimate doesn't deal any damage, but you still get the follow-up attack damage increase, so it's totally fine. Now, if you want to choose between these 2 sets, I guess it just depends on which set has greater stats, because like I said, they're both equally great. So if you have better stats on the Space Sealing Station set, use that, otherwise use Inert Cell Soto and vice versa. As for the main stat, head and hands will always have HP and attack. As for the body, if you're using Inert Cell Soto, you have to use crit rate body so that you can reach the 50% crit rate requirement for the follow-up attack damage increase. Although sure, you can get crit rate boost from light cones and other characters maybe, but it's still great to naturally have 50% crit rate so that you can get the damage increase permanently. Now if you're using the Space Station set, you can go with either crit rate or crit damage, whichever one you need the most. Moving on to the feet, you need attack or speed on this piece. For the spear, you need physical damage boost, but if you don't have one yet, you can use attack. And finally, for the rope, you need attack. For the substats, you're mainly looking for flat attack, attack percentage. Speed is also good because you need to get your ult as many times as possible. Although you can put Tingyun in your team, which regenerates 50% of your energy, but having speed is still nice. And lastly, you need crit rate and crit damage. If you're using the Space Station set, you have to balance these 2 stats, but if you're using Inert Cell Soto, you're gonna have to look for more crit damage since you already got a crit rate body. But if that's not enough for the 50% requirement, then you can look for a little bit more crit rate from the substats. For the team comp, it's quite simple. You just need characters that can keep CLARA alive, so any of the preservation characters will do. As for the Fire MC though, he can taunt enemies, but once that's gone, CLARA will still take damage, so I'd actually pick March or Japard over the Fire MC because they can produce a much more stronger shield. It's also great to have a healer on your team, not only for CLARA, but for the whole team. So you can use either Bailu or Natasha. And lastly, any of the Harmony characters will do. If you use the Space Ceiling Station set, you can have Asta on your team because she can provide speed for your team. Tingyun or Bronya would be nice if you're using the Inertial Soto. Tingyun can regenerate energy, so you won't need to have a lot of speed, and Bronya can increase your damage. And with that, I conclude that the best team for CLARA is a shielder, either March or Japard, a healer, either Natasha or Bailu, and a buffer, which can either be Asta, Tingyun, or Bronya. Also note that you have to put the Preservation character far from CLARA so that if the enemy does an AoE attack on the Preservation character, CLARA won't get hit. Although there is one character that always gets hit by the enemies, and I think we all know who that is. So you might just wanna put her away. I'm just kidding, but anyway, that's the team comp for CLARA. And that wraps up everything. If you have any other questions or clarifications, feel free to comment down below so that I and other people can give you a reply. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.